Hey sis.
Who, me? Who, me? Who, me?
Yes, you. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the Hey Sis, Yes You podcast. I am your host, Jalyssa. And again, I have the joy of having my big sis on my podcast. Everybody, welcome the one and only Tasha Millie to the pod.
I can't stay away. Can't stay away.
I know. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's just going to be a Jalyssa Tosh segment
I,
at this point.
I'm here for this.
Okay, I feel like I just feel like that's the vibe. That's what may or may not happen. Stay tuned. You heard it here first. Okay.
Come on. The
How
only
are
way that you're
you?
gonna get a podcast out of me is if you bring me on.
Period. Girl, please. I literally, Tosh, I just know. Prepare right now to be sick of me. That's what I should have said when I launched the podcast because I have probably giving my sis a list of, I want to talk about this with you one day. I want to talk about this with you one day. We're in the middle of a conversation. I'm like, we finna talk about that on the podcast. Like,
Let's
put
go.
it on
Let's
the
go.
pod. How are you feeling today? You're glowy. You look beautiful.
Well, I'm getting ready to. So there's like people are on TikTok right now, and they're like, all those Gen Zers are talking about. Wait, millennials. Excuse me. All the millennials that are like 40 where, and they're like, sis, I see it. So I don't even want to be like, girl, I'm about to turn 42, but I don't look like it
Petty.
because, they might put me in my place. But tomorrow's my birthday. Tomorrow's my birthday.
Period.
So
Yes. And it's funny because this is going to launch tomorrow. Totally unplanned, but because that's just what we do. I was just like, you know what? Forget what episode was going to go on tomorrow. I need to have a Tosh episode on her birthday because one, you are just the gift that keeps on giving.
come on.
So
Come on.
happy early birthday. 42 where? Okay.
I'm
42
not going to say it. I'm too scared. Let's go to
if
Texas.
if you're watching on YouTube, you know my sis looks good. You cannot tell the age difference between me and you. So stop. Okay, so it's May as of when this podcast launches, and May is for mamas. And so I thought, who better to have intro the podcast into the motherhood conversation than you? Because your story of your own journey with your mom or the lack thereof, and then coming into motherhood, almost losing your life, and then mothering again a couple times over after that, is just a miraculous story. Like the miracle of motherhood. You know what I mean? Like milagros. That's what I'm how to call you in my phone because you're such an intentional and beautiful mom. And so many times I think about how, like my husband didn't have a dad growing up. You didn't have a mom and I see you guys being like the best like parents ever. And I'm like, how, Sway? How, Sway? And so I just want to talk about motherhood and your journey. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about wherever you want to start with your story with your mom.
It's like wherever you want to start. And it's like, girl, come on. There's chapters upon chapters.
I know. I'm like thinking about it like, do we start with your intro to motherhood and then backtrack, or do we start with your own journey with your mom? What makes more sense to you?
Let's start with like my entry into motherhood because my
Okay.
journey with my own mom is a little like blotchy. It's a little
Yeah.
so yeah, like so my oldest daughter is 11 and I had her when I was your age.
Whoa, I didn't even put that together.
I did. I'm
Funny.
sorry, I'm at an Airbnb right now and it sounded like I'm like really, really in the hood. I'm talking so sirens are going crazy. Hopefully it's
I'm
not.
weak.
I mean, ain't nothing wrong with the hood, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway,
Right.
I had my oldest daughter when I turned 30. So I was considered an older mother. And I think I was nervous about becoming a mom. Ike and I had started our business when I was just shy of like 26. And we had been working really hard and had built like this really beautiful photography business. And then I met a friend who was like, you should have a baby. And I'm like, what? That's how it went down. And I really was afraid to have kids because I was really like ambitious and really driven. And I just felt like that was the thing that made me the happiest. And so I just couldn't imagine how having a child would like play into that. And I think that's why it took me so long. We were married for 5 years before we had kids. Uh,
Yeah.
and that was kind of like always the plan. It was kind of like, well, we'll be married for 5 years, but I don't know. I don't know that if that friend wouldn't have planted that seed, if we would have ever had a baby. And so I got pregnant with Wisdom, and she was born in 2012. And I was like so in love with her.
Mm,
I remember when I was like right around 20 weeks, and it's like you're getting ready to find out the gender. I remember feeling like, and I may have mentioned this in the last podcast episode, like I felt like it had to be a girl. For me, like
mm,
everything rode on that because
yeah.
my mom had been given up when she was a baby. She was adopted out. And then I grew up in foster care. And so for me, like it felt like having a daughter was the only way that I could like reverse
Mm.
all of the things that had gone on. And so I remember one day like calling the same friend who encouraged me to get pregnant and being like, everybody's announcing their babies and they're all having girls. There's not going to be enough girls to go around.
You're like, they're running out up there.
We're running out of girls. I'm not going to have a girl. And when I found out that that Wisdom was a girl, it just felt like
Wow, that's beautiful. Oh, yeah.
so, fast forward, I mean, like, it was the most magical pregnancy. It was the only one that was magical. Everyone after that, Wisdom was like the perfect baby. She was so easy, like,
Oh, that
she
firstborn, they trick you.
and she did, and she come to I remember one of the first times we left the house was because me and Ike were shooting a wedding, and she came to the wedding with us, and
Wow.
sat in the back, and she was just like this perfect baby. I did though really struggle with connecting with her um
Mm,
in the beginning. I just didn't really know like what to do, how to comfort her, how to soothe her, and there wasn't really no one came to show me. There was no one in
right.
my life that kind of came to show me. And so getting to like know her and learn her was like really tough. It was much easier for Ike. He was like all in, like he was adjusted. And I just remember feeling like a disconnect. And I
Mm,
had to actively choose. Like I remember having to, like you're like, I'm gonna lose weight. Like I'm gonna make the decision
yeah.
or whatever that thing is. I'm not going to do this or I'm going to do this. I had to be like, I am going to choose to learn how to be a good mom to this baby.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so that's what I did.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with my first too. Yeah, I remember my husband, it was so natural for him. It was so hard for me. And, like I was having friends with multiple of or having a baby with multiple of my friends at the time, and all their moms were there. And they were there for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and their mother in laws came for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And I was by myself and I had no idea. And, my motherhood journey. And I remember my husband, I was like, is something wrong with this baby? He won't stop crying. And he came home for lunch and he was like, well, he's just warm. His ears are warm, you can tell. And he unwrapped him and the baby stopped crying. And I was like, how you know that? Like, like, what is this voodoo?
Wait. Did you get the book? Like, did they give you an instruction manual? Yeah, like Ike was just like, they
Right.
were like two peas in a pod, and I feel like I was on the
Mm,
outside watching them, and it was just so hard. I felt used
mm,
because I was like nursing and I felt like used
yeah.
my body, but like aside from that, I felt like I didn't really know what to do with her. Um, yeah, and so I really had to learn. I had to learn how to be a mother, and I think what I did was just kind of go back into my memory and think about the people that made me feel nurtured. And
Mm,
when I look back over my life, I was actually driving up to this Airbnb today, and I thought about this woman who I shared a birthday with. She was a social worker. And I remember basically, I don't know when she started coming to our house, but I know that up until I turned 18, she always came to my house on May 1st and brought me a gift. And
Aw.
it was so funny when I got here, I tried to look her up to just see if I could find her because I'm like, what happened to her? Like she was 30 years older than me. So she's turning 72 tomorrow if she's still alive.
Oh.
And I was just like, I need to find her. I need
Yeah.
to like show her like who I am and what I've become. And
Wait, did you find her?
I found someone. I called the number, but it didn't go through. But I have an address and I'm the kind of girl that will roll up. So
We're on a journey now. Like I'm dedicating to this with you. Like
well, but I
what?
was just thinking, I remember I was just thinking about, gosh, I don't want to cry this episode. You're gonna do it to me
Friend, I
already.
already know we're gonna cry. You see the lack of makeup on my face is because I
That's not
knew.
fair. See,
I know your face is beat.
man, so I'm going to the airport, but I was just thinking as I was driving up here about birthdays, like past birthdays, because I got a prophecy that this birthday is gonna make up for all of the birthdays in the
Mm,
past were rough. And I was just thinking about like the standout moments. And I just remember this woman. I looked forward to my birthday because I knew that this woman was going to come through for me.
yeah.
And it was like I just think about my motherhood journey and I think about like collecting those people and those people that came through for me. And they showed me like what that looked like by coming through for me. And many of those people were teachers in my life. There was a teacher I used to babysit for, and when her son was old enough, they forgot to give him godparents, and so they let him pick. And he was 8 years old, and he picked me. I was, like, a senior in high school, and he picked me to be his godmother. No, I was in college at the time, and this woman was this incredible mother to these boys, and when I was pregnant with Wisdom, I had my baby shower at her house, and, like, to this day, everybody calls it the
Oh,
royal baby shower, but I think about her, and I think about, what I learned from watching her when I would babysit at the house, or I think about, this teacher who took me in after someone really important in my life had passed away, and they made it so easy for me to get through college. They provided me with a car, and
mm,
they gave me health insurance, and, like, it just I think about these people and their investment in me and how it made me feel. It made me feel, like, secure, it made me feel safe, it made me feel nurtured, it made me feel like someone was gonna have my back.
yeah,
Like, maybe I didn't know how to be a mom, but I knew what that feeling felt like.
yeah.
I just knew I wanted to create that for my kids.
Mm, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that too because there is this like weird myth that I had that I think many young moms can relate to that when you have this baby, it's just going to be first nature for you and to know all the things to connect to like you are one with this child. Like this child is literally like blood of your blood, like flesh of your flesh. And then they come out and sometimes it doesn't click. And I think um when you talk about like all of those deposits made into your life by those people and it was like they were all nurturing you in some way. And so what I'm hearing is like you took those little like stones and you like set them up as this like visual of like one thing I know for certain is that I will nurture and cover this girl. Because when you say like, oh, they gave me a car, or they helped me with this for college, or like they were covering you even though your story, your origin story kind of left you uncovered. And so how gracious of God to do that for you. I love that.
Yeah, so I feel like that was like that was the first round of motherhood for me.
Yeah.
And then, I got really sick and almost died, and
How
was
old was Wisdom?
Wisdom was 4 at the
Okay.
time.
Mhm.
Wisdom and I are exactly 30 years apart, very similar
Yeah.
to the woman I just told you. So every time I turn a year, she
Oh,
turns.
wait, that's cool.
So, so she was 4, I was 34, and, I went through heart failure, and I was told that my heart would never be strong enough to support, like, life, and so
Mm,
that my childbearing years were over, and
yeah.
that was so devastating because, again, it's like 4 years later,
Yeah.
and I'm running around with this little girl who has become, like, my sidekick now, right?
Oh,
And I wasn't thinking about other kids, but I wasn't not thinking about them, and now I'm having someone tell me that that door is closed, and
yeah.
it's devastating. So I spent a year getting my life together, trying to get healthy, trying to like get better. And I was on a medicine that would terminate a pregnancy if I found myself pregnant. And so the goal was to get off of that medicine. And I was able to do it. And my heart was healed, I guess, a year later. And so the doctor gave me clearance to try again. And like, I'm talking like that day, we were like, let's go. Just in case he changes his mind. Like
Right.
I got pregnant with courage, and she is like the miracle baby. She's the baby that I like prayed for. This is
Oh,
like the Abraham Sarah
yeah.
moment. And
Yeah. And it shows for sure.
so she came, and towards the end of my pregnancy it got real like shaky. So I learned a lot about whereas I didn't know how to connect with wisdom, I was already connected to this baby.
Mhm.
I was very tuned into her because it was during a time where well, I didn't know it was a her. Let's start there. I didn't find out with the second baby. So I
Until
didn't
birth?
yeah, I didn't know who was inside. But I
Wow.
very tuned in to my body because I had gone through so much before that. And I
Yeah.
learned so much about what my body feels like, what it's like. And so I was 36 weeks when my pregnancy was starting to fall apart. And
Mm.
I could feel it in my body, but I couldn't reproduce it to prove it to my caretakers. And so it was a lot of like fighting to go, there's something wrong. Like you gotta
Yeah.
be out. And I was right. And
Mhm.
they induced me, and she came 4 weeks early. And we thought she was a boy, and she was a boy when she came out. But she was a girl. It was just the most exciting thing because although I know the boy moms love their boys, I feel very called by the Lord to be raising girls.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
always known that that's what me and Ike were to do.
Yeah.
We had a girl group for many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're just really good at girls, and we
Yeah.
feel really called to them. And so when Courage was a girl, it was just like, God, like you heard my pleas, my
Uh-huh.
prayers. It was just amazing. And
Oh.
I felt so connected to her from the beginning. And it was really fun being a mom and watching, because I didn't grow up with siblings either. So now I'm
Yeah.
experiencing like a sibling relationship while also being a mom to two kids. And uh,
Yeah.
I feel like that's really when our family became a family, was when Courage came, because
Mm.
there was just something about the four of us that just was like so special. And I learned a lot about what an awful parent I am too. Like I thought I was amazing because wisdom was great, but it really was just that's just who wisdom is. And so you
Yeah.
to go, okay, I need to learn who these, and just going back to your previous point, right? When we have these babies, they're a part of us, like you said, blood of our blood, flesh of our flesh, but they're also their own person.
Yep. Their
They're
own
their
soul. Yeah.
own soul with their own ideas from the beginning, right?
Hmm.
And so they're nothing like their siblings. They're nothing like your husband or your spouse, your partner,
Girl.
or they're everything like them, right? And it's like
Yeah.
I realized with both my girls that it's a courtship now. It's a
Yeah.
get to know them in the same way that I got to know their dad. It's
Yep.
a relationship.
Absolutely.
It's a dating. It's establishing trust. It's like that. All that stuff is not automatic just because I'm their mom.
No. And I think oftentimes in motherhood, we can do that. We can kind of like create this environment for our kids that they're like these little robots or they're like puppets and we're the puppeteer. And you're kind of like telling them who they are, not in the way that you're like speaking life into them, but you're more so like, my child would never, or I don't accept this, or I would never do that. So why are you doing that? When like really, you're just kind of given permission by God to partner with him in like this person's story, but you're not to write their story. And so I love that so much because yes, like you are getting to know this human. They're your child, but they are actually God's creation and they have a whole story that is being written out. And so yeah, I love that. It's like you're there to
Whole
steward them.
personality, a whole everything.
Yep.
And my girls, like courage and wisdom, are so completely different.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, and I've had to get to know them. Like I've had to intentionally lean in and get to know them. I just
Yeah.
recently took Courage on our first like mommy and me trip last fall. And this was her, she actually advocated. This was not my idea. She was just like, wisdom everywhere and you never take me anywhere. I want my own trip. And I'm like, oh, say less. You want your own trip? Like, okay. She like made it very clear that she noticed and that she wasn't okay with it. And so I took her to Paris and it's kind of a major first trip. Tickets were on sale.
The bar is set high,
No,
okay?
it was the worst idea ever. 'Cause now she's like, can we go there tomorrow? Like she just thinks it's like
She's like,
normal.
next Greece.
Right, exactly. Well, she's already been to Greece, but
Oh my gosh. I'm weak.
she went at like 3 months old. But
I remember the pictures actually now
yeah,
that you
that
say
was like
it.
anyway, I remember on that trip, it was the first time that she had been separate from my third baby, Glory. We'll talk about her in a minute and all the things that I've learned because of her. But it was just, I realized like she and Glory had never been separated since Glory came.
Oh,
And Glory is 2 years younger than Courage. So Courage was born in 2019 and then Glory came in 2021. So through all of the George Floyd pandemic stuff. And I realized that Courage was kind of forced to grow up prematurely. Like she was the baby when another baby came on the scene. And
yeah.
she was quite ready to not be the baby. And I see that dynamic play out every single day. But it wasn't until I went on that trip that I could actually really see her and really see
Yeah.
like what all of that was. Because when we were
Yeah.
together, she was just like so happy to have the attention, so happy to have the one-on-one time, so happy to be babied and to be nurtured and to be cared for. And
I
I don't know
love
if
that.
that would have been able to happen had I not taken the time to like lean into her and to separate her from my baby is gonna my oldest one is the oldest, right? Like she's on her own path. She's gonna always have her separate thing because she's 6 years older than Courage and 8 years older than Glory. And the baby's always gonna get what they want. They're gonna always take the they're gonna grab for it. And so I think somewhere in there, she wasn't getting lost, but she was.
That's the
Um,
middle child syndrome. That's where it comes
it
from.
is. I know. And it's crazy because I feel like in a lot of ways she's an oldest child because of the gap between her and wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's also a middle, but then they all feel like it's only children at times. It's so wild. So that was really amazing for me. And it was a deposit for me to go like this needs to happen. These
Yeah.
kids need to have one-on-one time with me. They need to have one-on-one time with their dad, and they also need to have two-on-one time. They need to have
Yeah.
time with me and Ike and just them, not around
Yeah.
doctor's appointments, not around a practice, but like something that they enjoy that matters to them, where they get all of our attention just for
Yeah.
them. Because
Yeah.
how often do our kids get that?
Yeah. One of our mentors told us that on the day of their child's birthday, so like my son is February 9th. So on the 9th of every month, they have a solo day with them two and just the child for every one of their kids. And I love that idea because you're right. Like you get to know them more when you separate them from the group, you know?
Mhm. It's so true. I
Yeah.
actually adopted that same thing. We always set aside like their day of the
I
month
love that.
do something that's like just theirs. And I
Yeah,
think
that's cool.
it's so special and it's so important. And you can
Yeah.
also do that for your spouse. Like the fifth of every month is like date night or whatever, you know.
Yes. Oh, hold up. You give me an idea.
I'm just here to help you out. You
I
know
didn't
what I'm
even
saying?
think about that. Yeah, you're right though.
Yeah.
That's
So
so cool.
everybody gets a little something, something out of it.
Yeah. So it's crazy like listening to you talk about all of these little just the little details that are a part of your motherhood journey because it's just so it requires you to be so intentional. Like it's so easy to just like let the kids grow up. Like you have them, they grow up. You provide them food, shelter, clothing, drop them off at school, they grow up. But when you're a parent that is so intentional about bringing them up, like that's what I'm hearing as you talk is like all of the little details. Like I'm taking my, because she was only 4 when you guys went to Paris, right? Yeah, like I'm taking my 4 year old to Paris. And not only that, like, let me tell you guys how much went into this trip for those of you who don't have Tosh on Instagram. Like, it was so intentional. Every little thing was thought out. The agenda, we styled Courage like a full time, like, styling job, just like I would do for her mom. So, because Courage is a fashion girl, she
She's a
cares.
fantastic girl. She
She
does care.
cares about how she looks. Even at 4, she's 5 now, but even at 4, she cared. Like, we made sure that her outfits were top tier. You had somebody there to just like capture it for you to make sure that she remembered this always. Cause you know, in year 4, your memories can fade, but like you wanted her to remember it. You had video and photos, and it was just so intentional. It was so beautiful to watch because you saw Courage just glowing through that entire experience with you. And it was really encouraging for me because, okay, right, like you're listening to this, you're probably like, I cannot take my child to Paris. I get it. But it would be as simple as I remember talking to you after that and being like, maybe I'll go get a little hotel for me and one
Yeah,
of my
no, seriously.
boys,
Let's
like
be
a
real.
local, a
First
little
of all, I'm just
staycation.
saying, I can't take my child to Paris either. This trip worked out because I found a great flight deal. She's 4. She's not eating a lot of food. Like it's a lot
Yeah.
easier to like navigate like sharing meals and things like that. But I also have a dear friend who lives in Paris who hosted us, which made it like so much
So
easier.
much.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want to like be clear that like this was definitely like a once in a lifetime trip. Like I don't want to
But
downplay
also,
or
but that's
make her
special.
feel
And
like,
that's,
but it is. It was so special.
yeah,
I have this, I just always think about life. We never know, right? We never know if we're going to get this moment again. We never know if we're going to be in
absolutely.
the presence of these people again. And so for me, when I am with the people that I love, I spare no expense because
Hmm.
we don't know if we will ever be in this moment again in this way. And so we have to like live it. We have to be in it, be present in it, give the moment what it deserves, which is why
Yeah.
I went above and beyond for her because my hope is that, yes, we will have many more trips to Paris, but we also didn't know the world was going to shut down for 2 years. And there were people that never
Yeah.
got to go to Paris, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, if this is the last time, it's going to be the best time.
Have you always thought like that? Or was there something like an experience, or maybe it was marriage, or maybe it was motherhood, or something that really like kind of pushed you in that direction of thought?
I feel like over the last couple years, I've just come to really shift my priorities around what I value. And I really valued like accolades and I really valued money and things. And then I realized like none of that really mattered. And what I value the most is people
Yeah.
and how I make them feel.
Yeah.
So for me, I know I know how I want to feel. I know how I want to be treated. And that's the experience that I want to give my kids. Like if when they're my age and they're looking back over their childhood, I want them to be like, man, my mom, she was a mess sometimes and she yelled and got frustrated about things, but man, she went above and beyond to make sure that our childhood was happy and that we
Yeah.
had memories. Like I want them. I had met this woman, well, I have a friend, and she was talking about her parents at this conference, and she was just like, my parents worked so hard to make sure that our childhood was so full of joy. It was
Oh,
just laughter and beautiful memories. And she was just like, when I look back on my childhood, like all I remember is laughter and dancing and fun experience and memories. And I remember crying when she was sharing that because I don't look back on my childhood and I don't see that. But when I
mm,
think about my kids, I'm like, I'm not going to keep them from that. I'm going to do everything that I can so that when they think about me and Ike as adults, when they're on a podcast talking about their childhood, they can go, our mom did everything she could to make sure
mm,
we had the sweetest memories, that we felt so celebrated, that we felt so loved, that we felt so safe, that we felt nurtured, that we felt encouraged. She made us feel like we could do anything. She never like made fun of us. She always created space. She always brought us places so we could see what was possible. Like that's what I want them to say about me,
yeah.
you
And they
know?
will. And they will. For sure. I mean, like, you can see it. Like, I know you outside of Instagram, right? And so I can like attest to like this is not just a show, this is not just content, like this is literally your life. Like I love when you randomly send me little videos of the girls, and Courage is over here preaching the gospel, or like you and Wisdom's in the background while we're trying to put your outfits together, and she's just being her goofy self, and you guys are like clowning each other back and forth, and obviously seeing the girls with Ike, because that daddy daughter relationship is everything, is real for you guys. And I'm just so proud of you and just so inspired. And I think that what is special, if you didn't listen to the first episode with Tosh, please go back and listen to it. But to touch on it a little bit, what is really special about everything that you're saying and everything that you're experiencing in motherhood is that this is not coming for you by example. This is not coming to you as, well, my mother taught me, or my grandmother taught me, or on Sundays, me and my mom did this, or my grandmother taught me this. Like, this is coming from like a blank canvas for you. And I'm like curious as to, when you gave birth to Wisdom and then Courage and then Glory, you were really given this blank canvas, and you literally like intentionally decided to pick up the supplies to create this beautiful picture of motherhood because you didn't have that. And so I'm curious, like, what that journey has been like for you to mother, even though you were not mothered, and what are some ways that your own journey of motherhood has been healing for you?
Yeah, that's good. I think in the beginning, I was really focused on them and just like what I would want things to feel like, or what I would want things to be like, or what I would have liked. I think back on my childhood, I remember I was talking about this the other day. There's not a single picture of me sitting on anyone's lap when I was a baby.
Wow.
There's not a single picture of my mom holding me. Um, I can't ask my mom what it was like when she gave birth to me. Like there's just none of that. I don't have any of that. And I think um a lot of what drove me in the beginning was wanting to fill the gaps for
Yeah.
my, like, what I guess I thought that by doing things for them that I could like fill the gaps in my own story.
Yeah.
And so that was a lot of what it was like in the beginning with Wisdom. It's like, I'm going to do this because I didn't get to do this. I'm going to do this for her because I didn't get to do this.
Parenting out of our own needs.
Yeah, like it was
Yeah.
just like a lot of that. It wasn't until 2 years ago when I turned 40 and I went to Disneyland for the first time
Aw.
that things kind of changed. So I remember being invited by Alaska Airlines to Disneyland. And up until like I got invited, I never cared. I never like, but I feel like I talked myself out of caring about Disneyland because
Yeah. You were
I didn't.
protecting yourself?
Right, because why? Like, right, that's what we do. You know, like the girl that's like, "Oh, that's cute. I love that you have all of that, but I would never want that." That's
I
like,
wouldn't want that.
but
Yes.
secretly you do want it, but you
Yes,
don't think it's
girl.
gonna happen for you, so you're just actually a hater. I was a hater of my own, like, of my own self. Like, it was just kind of
Right.
talk to myself. So I get invited to Disneyland, and my friend Sarah, the Birds Papaya, she actually, which who you style,
Yes,
she
a
actually was
gem.
there, and she's a Disney head, and
Yeah, she is.
introduced me, like, I went around with her for 2 days all over Disneyland, and I allowed myself to just not be Tosh, not be like, I allowed myself to be Tasha, Latasha, the little kid, the little girl.
Aw.
And I had the most fun. I am talking like I had so much fun. I was eating all the things. I was jumping up and down when the parade came down Main Street.
Aw.
So excited to meet Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. And there was something about that trip that changed everything for me
Wow.
because I accessed this little girl that I like didn't realize was like still in there. And
Yeah.
from that moment on, I invited myself to be a participant in the different experiences that I was giving my girls. So instead of
Aw.
like doing this for them, I started now like doing it for us. It's for
Mm.
them, but it's just as much for me as it is for them. And not like the grown-up version of me that like
Yeah.
wants this because I want the world to see and it's Instagram worthy or Pinterest worthy, but for the little girl in me that didn't get to have it. I invite
Yeah.
her to participate.
Yeah.
Come to this tea party with us and let's all have this experience together.
Yeah.
Go to Disneyland and let's play together. And even tonight, my cousins who I met a couple years ago are on their way here to celebrate my birthday with me, my very first birthday. And the whole week that they're here is about playing. Everything we're doing is around play because we didn't get to do that when we were little
Yeah,
together.
you didn't grow up with cousins.
I didn't grow up
Yeah.
with cousins that like I knew that looked like me. And so they're coming here so that we can play. Like there's board games
Mhm.
here. There's like all the like trashy snacks that like I'm way
Yeah,
too
I love that. I loved like your little setup and
but
reading
that's like
your
what it is.
schedule.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like I'm allowing myself to like pull the little girl up and go like, let's actually do this again. It's not too late. It's not
Yeah.
too I think because I've allowed myself to do that, there I can show up for my kids and there's not like resentment about what I didn't have because I'm loving myself
Man.
in the way that I should have been loved.
Yep.
Even last year, I was at this like party and there was someone doing flash tattoos and I
Oh
have
yeah.
have all of this jewelry that has my kids' names on it. I mean, I have their names are tattooed on my body. Like there is no and they know like my kids can't even read and they know where their name is on my body. They know how loved they are for me. And I remember just being like, nobody ever wore my name. Nobody
Mm.
ever like was excited about me. Girl, I went and I got a tattoo and I put like like the old school tattoos like that the sailors have where it's like the
Uh-huh.
like someone's name and I just tattooed me in there so that I could see myself. It's like I did it for me. I don't need someone to do that for me. I can do that for me. Like I can go to little Tosh and be like, "Girl, I see you and I'm proud of you and I'm about to take you I'm taking you on a date or I'm going to give you this birthday experience that you deserve." Like we can reparent ourselves and we can love
Absolutely.
ourselves in the way that we should have been. Like we can give that back to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been working on. It's just doing that for myself and not
Mm.
waiting for someone to do that for me. And it has just been so healing.
Mm. That's so beautiful. And I love you so much. I'm so proud of you for just like, yeah, because we're talking about all of the ways that you're such an intentional mother to your girls. And like you said, you have their names tattooed on you. You want them to have the experiences. You want them to get one-on-one time. But I know that you probably hear me say this often, but like, who mothers the mother? Like, do we ever stop needing to be mothered? And then also, one thing that you said that was really, I just hope a lot of people hear this who didn't grow up with in a healthy parenting relationship is you are tending to little Tosh so that you're not bitter. I think sometimes, like, it could be even me and my husband can catch ourselves doing this, like, I didn't have this. Like, you better be grateful. Like, I wish my parents blank, 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 or like, really, like, they deserve this, though. You know what
Yeah,
I
and
mean?
it's not fair to them. Like
It's
it's
not
not
fair to
fair
them.
to project that. Like
Yep.
it has to be here.
Yep.
And they also
Yep.
didn't ask to be compared to like where our parents failed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's so good. Like, just there's so much wisdom in that, like tending to that little Tosh. And it's so funny because I remember when you went to Disney and just the joy, like, and like Sarah, she is, like you said, a Disney head. And so, like, knowing that you were doing that with her and you got to really like have this fullness of experience. And that's so beautiful, Tosh, because I think like I was watching Instagram the other day and there was this video and the audio, the girl was like, to every woman in their 30s that finally has the peace of mind or financial stability, um, or courage to do what the third grade version of them wanted to do all along. And she was like putting the little like glitter in her hair and like, just doing all those things. And I was like thinking about myself, like I've been wearing a lot of like fluffy things lately. And I was like, growing up, I always like was too much. You know what I mean? Like Jaleesa's too much. She's does the most. She talks so much. She's like the loudest. Like, why do you have to wear that or what? Like, all the things. And like now I'm gonna be 32, and I'm just like, I don't care what anybody says, but I know I'm doing that for baby Jalyssa, who
Yeah.
was like either too poor, to like wear or have the things, or that was just muted, because she was just too much. And so I think that's so beautiful. And it reminds me of how like healing motherhood can be and how sanctifying it can be. I love that. And I guess that would lead me to my question of like, in this journey, like you've been a mom for 12 years this year,
Mhm.
and you have been on such an, I mean, I feel like your journey the last couple of years is has just been so wild. Like you've been in you entered your 40s, and it almost feels like the moment you took your first 40-year-old breath, you have just been on this like huge, like
Boom.
fast track, like self discovery, meeting your dad, meeting your siblings, meeting your cousins, coming into these different versions of yourself, showing up in different spaces differently, like getting new opportunities. Like, I mean, like it has been crazy to watch. I'm like, dude, you've lived like 15 years in the last 2 years, like
Feels that way. It
10
does.
times the growth, 10 times the experiences, 10, even like not always good either. Some very traumatizing and some very hard. And Tosh still has to be nurtured, you know? Who mothers the mother? And so I'm curious as to what that looks like for you. What are some ways that I think that we always think about like our moms, the women who we came from, who birthed us, and the way that they nurture us or show us or teach us. But really, because the world is so flawed, that doesn't happen all the time. But God is so good to like feel those things in the most mysterious of ways.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, as I see you showing up, you're so healthy, you're so intentional, you're so wise, you're so bold, you're glowing, you're like just on this like really cool journey that has just been so fun to watch. I'm curious as to like what has been nurturing your soul in this season. Um, that maybe like since your mom isn't able or you didn't have a grandma to do that for you, like what are some ways that you have seen the Lord supplement those things for you?
This is so good. So you said, do we ever stop needing mothering? And the answer is no. I
Yeah.
think that one, I'm going to be a mom until the day that I die, and I will
Yeah.
need a mom for the rest of my life, right? And so it's like, where does that come from? Well, number one, I'm really, really thankful for my therapist.
Mm.
She's a really beautiful Black woman who is very, very wise. And while I don't like see her as a mother figure, like I feel like that's a safe place for me to share my thoughts, to wrestle with some things.
Yeah.
And I feel like I am corrected and challenged in ways that I need to be. And therapy has been, I started therapy last January, and it has been one of the most thoughtful things I feel like I've ever done for myself.
Mm.
Um, and so that's number one. And I feel like, man, it is having a circle of friends who love you for real, and who see you beyond what you can do, who see your heart is like so important. On Sunday, I was kind of going through like a complicated situation, and I remember I text my cousin, and I'm like, this is one of those moments where I just wish I had a mom because I just feel so frustrated, and I want a mom to be like, you're incredible. Everybody else sucks. Like this, because this is what I tell my kids, right? Don't
Yeah.
worry about her, honey. She's being weird. Like you're amazing. Like
Yeah.
I'm like gaslighting my kid. Like I want to be gaslit, okay? No, and
Right.
my friends text me and just she's like maybe a year older than me, and she just poured into me and was just like, you are a light, and anybody who knows you is so lucky to walk in it, and like I love you so much, you're so special to me. And it was just like what I needed. And I texted her this,
Yeah.
and I said, thank you so much for nurturing me because I really needed that. And she's
Oh.
like, that's what I'm here for. And honestly, you have spoken so much life into me. Like you remind me of who I am. um Not me about to cry.
Mhm.
You are always, always lifting my arms up, like chin up,
Mm.
Tosh. Like you have done that from the beginning. Um, I think so many of my friends are the sister, are the friend, are the mother that I need. Um,
Mm.
when I'm doing something I shouldn't do or when I'm frustrated. Like they chastise in like a beautiful way, right? Because the connection's there, so the correction can happen. So
Mm,
I feel like that's why community is so important, and that's why mentorship is so important, because that is how we make it. That is how we move through this world. And like I think we always are like mentorship is older women, and yes, like there's wisdom that comes from older women, but there's also so much wisdom that comes from
yeah.
people who are younger than us. I'm finding myself in a circle of like 30 to 31-year-olds recently, and you guys are so wise and so
Mhm.
wonderful, and like it has been such a blessing to like be surrounded by such youth, such strong, wise youth.
Mhm.
Um, so for me, it is my sisterhood, my community of women who I look to, who I admire, and who look to me. I feel like
Yeah.
we just like go back and
It's
forth.
so mutual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good, Tosh, because I think like you said multiple things that are just so good, but one, like you were in need of like a mother, like a nurturing, like I just need to be gassed up. I just need to be heard. I just need to be seen. And then it's like the Lord just put it on your friend's heart to just swoop in. And she's not even like old enough to be your mother, but there's
Wait,
still
no,
this.
Shar, you just had her on
Oh
the
yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Oh,
Like
Charlotte,
I
Queen
forgot our
Charlotte.
name.
Yes, yes. We name drop on this podcast, okay? Except for when we feel like being petty. Anyways, but yeah, she just swooped in and like you guys are peers, right? It's not even like she's an older, gray-haired, wise woman, but God is so good like that. Like when the scriptures say, like, do not despise the youth. That is what it means, is because yeah, there's just so many ways where God can like supplement these things that you think it's supposed to look one way, but it actually ends up looking another way. And that is just like a gift from God, you know, a way that God is just kind to us and sweet to us. And I love that you said also community. It's in your community, because one thing that is just so important to me is that we as women acknowledge the strength in numbers, that there is strength in community, that we actually need each other, that we actually are better together. Like when the scriptures tell us that two are better than one, it was not lying to us. Like what you said, like I come in sometimes and I like lift your head, hold your arms up, like that is what we see in the scriptures. I was reading about David and Jonathan, and I'm always fascinated by their friendship. But I love that it said, and their souls were knit together, because I'm always talking to women about like being equally yoked with your close friends group. We always think about being equally yoked as like with your man, like with who you're dating, but being equally yoked with your core friend group, knowing that you guys are both like after the same thing. And it doesn't have to mean like you want the same career or you have the same goals.
I'm gonna show up on the bridge and you're gonna meet
Yep,
me. You're not gonna leave
exactly.
me hanging. Like I know I
Yep.
can count on you to meet me at the bridge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so special because it's like the way that as women, you like you said, you'll be a mother till the day that you die and you'll need a mom. And I just love that we can find that in one another, you know? And I hope that like anybody who's listening to this podcast that feels like, well, I don't have my mom or I lacked nurturing, that you think about, well, you said that there was a woman, a social worker, and in some way she filled this void because she saw you and she made you feel noticed. Or there was a teacher, or there was a friend that was like, hey, maybe you should have a baby. Something that, you know, like your mom might have been nagging you about. Like, you're 30
Hey,
now,
no,
give me
for
a
sure.
baby.
Yeah,
But
like come on.
yet you had a friend who was like, sis, like, have a baby, you know, to just spur you on and encourage you. And I just love that. It just reminds me like we are better together. Like that is the Hey Sis Yes You podcast.
Well, and with that,
All right. Like, no, seriously, I'm just amazed at your journey. And I'm just really inspired because I think if people don't have the privilege of knowing you or knowing your story, it's so easy to look at somebody who seems healthy and who seems whole and to be like, oh, they probably had a wonderful mom, and that's why she could be such a great mom. Or, oh, like she must have it made, or she had this great upbringing, or but like you just chose, like you decided, like I have decided. And you put one foot in front of the other every single day. And in this, like Gina, her shirt, she just like redropped it and it says motherhood is sanctifying. I remember getting when she first dropped that back in 2000, I think 17, and I had just had my third and I also almost died. And it was a crazy experience. And she sent me that t-shirt and I remember being like, okay, like it clicked that this was going to be a journey that was sanctifying, and sanctification is long and it can be hard and it can be gritty and it requires grit. And that is what you're sharing with us. So I really appreciate you being so vulnerable to like let us into those deep parts of your story. And I'm just so excited. I'm excited to see like I don't want to cry either. I'm just excited to see the generations that will come from you. Like your children rise up and they call you blessed. And I see it. I see it in the random like reflect, like you sent me a picture one time, we're trying to get your outfit together and I could see your daughter in the reflection and she was just gazing at you. And I remember just like, we're trying to pick out your outfit, it's really not that deep, but I was stuck on that little like her in the background just gazing at her mama, and all I could think about was like, look, and she looks a lot like you as a child, as when you were a little girl, like Wisdom looks like little Tosh. And all I could see was like little Tosh, like gazing at you and being like just so proud and inspired, and like how beautiful that your girls, though they are their own people and their own souls and will have their own journey. It reminds me of when Paul said, like, follow me as I follow Christ. Like how beautiful that you could like show them, that you can teach them, that you can pour into them, that you can gas them up when they're feeling down, or they can have your hand me downs, they can have your pieces of jewelry, and that you'll hold your granddaughter in your arms one day and be able to like pour blessing over her, prophesy over her. Like the generations are better off because you decided. And I'm just so privileged that I get to have like a semi front, because I live so far, but like front row seat to this journey because Tasha is so inspiring. And I think that one, you need to just write a series of books first and foremost. But I just want you to like know that like little Tosh is so proud. Is so proud. And the generations to come from you are just, they're just gonna shake things up. They're gonna shake things up. And I'm just so proud of you, sis.
Thank you. You did it to me again. I can't pull myself together. Why do you keep doing this to me?
Because
Oh,
we love each other. We are genuinely like, I don't know. We just have a cool bond. And I think that we really see each other. And I do see you, and I think it's why we work so well together. Like this whole Zendaya Law connection that we have, like, it's
man.
deep. Like,
Girl, okay.
right. Like, it's deep. And I'm just so proud of you. So thank you. Thank you for showing us all. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. In January, when I was in Memphis, this woman, I was sharing a little bit of my story, and she was just like, it's time. It's time. And
Mm,
she was just like, it is time for you to share your story because you do not look like what you've been through. And people need to know that there's a way forward.
mm,
People who are like you, who have come from what you have come from, need to know that there is a way, that there is a life,
mm,
where they came from. And so I just am really humbled again to be on your platform and to be able to share my story. And I'm really, really thankful that I get to use my voice to encourage people who have come up like me, that like we didn't get to control how our life started, but we get to choose
yeah.
what that looks like moving forward. And
Yeah.
it's never too late to choose. It's never too late to change your mind. It's never too late to decide that you want to write a different story. You just get to do it. You just have
Mm,
to do it. And
yeah.
so
Like you said, like use the analogy about like losing weight, or, like when you just decide like one day, like I'm going to fill in the blank. And like you decided all the way back when Wisdom was that tiny little baby, you had no idea that you'd have two more daughters. You had no idea that you'd have to face, like look death in the face and be like, oh, I might not live to see another day. And you decided, and you keep on deciding. And I think that's the most encouraging thing, is like life is not easy for you. Like you go through real things, you know, you have real, like, you're a real person. You're not just this beautiful influencer who travels the world and gets all these cool brand deals, and like, you're a real person. And always just so encouraged, like, even in our conversations, we're like, okay, we'll have a moment like, I'm just going to be petty or I'm just going to vent. But it never ends that way. It always ends with like, this is what I've been learning in the scriptures, or I've just been worshiping over this, and it has been like that ever since I've known you. And it's just getting more and more deep in that way. And it just reminds me that you just keep choosing. Like, choosing is a continuous thing, and you keep choosing. And also, can I just say, I'm so proud of you that you are sharing your story, because I know, like, we talked about that before too, like, just wanting to share more of the backstory, more of the deep parts, because there's so many women who will attach themselves to a part of your story and be like, oh, so I can have this one day, or I can be free from this one day, or God can restore that in me. And I think that's so, it just reminds me of like when Jesus was like, who puts a lamp on a hill and then covers it up? Like, what good is salt if it loses its flavor? Like, no, like, you have these stories, like, shine light, sis, like, put a little sazon on the gram with sharing your story, like, because it is beautiful and it is spurring us on, and by the blood of the lamb and the word of our testimony.
And amen. Amen.
Amen. I love you so much, sis.
Ooh,
Happy birthday,
thank you.
and happy early Mother's Day.
Thank you. Happy Mother's Day, boo.
I love you, and I will actually just see you as soon as I hit stop record. Thank you for being here, sis.
Thank you for having me. I love you.
I love you more.